Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the next book that was released after the Vampire Core book, Vampire the Requiem, that is, Coteries. And it's a source book for Vampire the Requiem that steps away from bloodlines and disciplines to ask a deeper question. What does it mean to be a group of vampires who actually rely on each other to survive? Released early in the Vampire Requiem's life cycles, Coteries try to reshape not just how the players interact with the world, but how they interact with each other. In a book about group dynamics, trust, power, betrayal, and practical and emotional realities of sharing eternity with a handful of other monsters were front and centre. Masquerade gave us big personal soap operas against a meta plot heavy backdrop. Coteries quietly suggests something else. The party is the story. And certainly, I think a lot of the lessons learned, a lot of the ideas shared in Coteries have made it into V5. So it explores what is a coterie, and it actually gets into the why of coteries, not just the what a coterie was. There wasn't really much work done in Masquerade on how the group of players kind of interacted as a coterie, and this puts it front and center right from the start. The coteries are more than just survival packs or sabbat packs, they're emotional ecosystems. And it defines different types of coteries from political, military, familiar, ideological, etc. Introduces purpose-driven design. Every coterie should have a reason to stick together. Why are the players relying on each other? Why do the characters interact? And it discusses how coteries can echo mortal institutions, families, cults, businesses, criminal gangs, always with a vampiric twist. The best bit about this is even kindred need somebody to watch their back while asleep. You know, concepts like this, you could build entire chronicles off one sentence. It talks about building a coterie and practical tools for designing your group. It suggests that each coterie member would have a defined role, a leader, enforcer, face, mystic, etc. Encourages players to collaborate on shared backstories and mutual debts, introduces coterie merits, pooled resources that reflect shared havens, retainers, influence, and so on. This chapter feels a bit mechanical, but that's not a bad thing. It gives players permission to treat their group as a living character sheet with evolving strengths and weaknesses. Sidebar and power dynamics explain how informal leadership and manipulation often matter more than any title. Great reminder in Vampire, control rarely looks like control. Kind of looks at different types of coteries and it starts looking at different covenants and how they view different types of coteries. I start really digging into the what perspectives different characters have for being in a coterie, for existing, and how that shapes the covenant shapes their worldview. Did like a coterie based around a lie may be stronger than one based around the truth. Some hints to help a storyteller run and give direct advice about how to center the group in your chronicle. You know, that conflict between players isn't a problem, it's content. It could have just scenes where a group disagrees, fractures, and reforms, offers guidance on PvP boundaries, trust building, session zero tools. It's also a brief but helpful section on domain design, making sure the external world pressures your coterie in interesting ways. And I really like the concept of narrative gravity, that a coterie should always pull a story towards it, not scatter the characters away from each other. And that's a killer principle that a lot of storytellers can overlook. So, what it gets right challenges the standard party model for the World of Darkness in a good way, pushes players to really build interdependent characters, not just solo operators pulled together. Rich, reusable ideas for storytellers across multiple chronicles and encourages introspection and grounded drama over cosmic horror or the bombastic. And like I say, it did miss the mark on release on a few things. So this was the first book released after Vampire, the Requiem core book, and talked before about such a large player base in the LARP community. And whilst actually the coterie content in this book is superb, the LARP application is almost non-existent. And whilst these ideas would work in a LARP, it's not. There's no adaptation or scale-up guidance. And actually, some groups found the structure too rigid, especially in open sandbox campaigns where player freedom is paramount. And there's an assumption of cooperation that doesn't always hold in play. Some tables might rebel against being forced into close-knit groups. Now, one of the things I've liked when I've played V5, which took the concept of coterie one step further, was actually how it bound the players and got them working together. So when I'm thinking about, players, the assumption of cooperation and the rigidity, is very much a masquerade mindset. And I understand that by releasing this book, White Wolf were trying to challenge previous existing concepts. The other thing this book doesn't really cover in much detail at all, apart from a few examples of maybe where you might run a clan-based coterie, is clan. And clan was such an endemic key principle in the old world of darkness. A lot of players felt alienated that it wasn't front and center in Requiem. So yeah, so on top of already some resistance, this book kind of played into that. Certainly, I was not interested, and I don't remember buying this as it was released because I was so heavily involved in LARP. I didn't see the application for it for LARP. Certainly, have picked it up later. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, LARP players in particular felt alienated by the idea of fixed roles and structured internal hierarchies. For them, politics between the players was the whole point of the LARP game. And the intimacy of coteries can feel like a little cage when you want to play in a political jungle. The other thing is, it probably's encouraged a bit of sort of clique play if you adapted it too much for live action. However, coteries on its merit. It's one of those books that rewards storytellers who want to dig deep and craft stories with real emotional stakes. It also signposted that Requiem was never trying to be Masquerade 2.0. It was something else entirely personal, grounded, and quietly vicious. I think one of the things White Wolf might have got wrong was not being bolder in changing the game and keeping some of the same titles and concepts. And I'd have loved to have seen what didn't make the game cut. However, if you're a tabletop fan, love Gothic horror, this book is a must read. If you come from a LARP or Masquerade, it takes a shift in mindset at the time. Like I say, a lot of this has been adapted for V5, but there's gold in those pages. And actually, I could say that about every Requiem book, if you're willing to mine it. That is my thoughts on Coteries, the book. Next up, I'm going to be talking about another interesting choice to release so early, and that is Nomads. If you have thoughts on Requiem, do share it. I do these videos because I love talking about and engaging with people about Vampire. I look forward to chatting to you in another video, and I'll see you again. Goodbye.